You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Missouri Valley Conference. Let's get into it. Last year, Bradley won the regular season with a 16-4 conference record. Trailed just behind was Drake at 15-5, although Drake, the Bulldogs, the 2 seed, beat Bradley in the conference tournament championship 77-51 to get that lone NCAA tournament invite for the conference, where Drake, as a 12 seed, ultimately lost to 5 seed Miami 63-56. By the way, it's still super weird to me that now we're in a day and age where the Missouri Valley Conference is a one-bid league. I don't like that. We need to change it, folks. Let's go. Come on, Missouri Valley Conference teams. Let's get after it. As a conference last year, the Missouri Valley was 16th, so kind of like smack dab right in the middle. Remember, there's 32 in total. In terms of KenPom team rankings last year, let me give you a little bit of the bookends. There were 3 top 100 teams. That was Bradley and Drake, we already talked about, and Indiana State, who was 100th. On the bottom end, though, the other bookend, you had UIC, University of Illinois Chicago, and Evansville, both outside the top outside the top 300 last year. UIC was 301 and Evansville was 352. They were 5-27 overall and 1-19 in conference play. Well, let's talk some of the major storylines for this year. One is, it's actually a last year thing, but it's a healthy reminder we need to look at, is realignment. There was some in and out ahead of last season, so let me remind you what it is, because this is the second year of this new makeup. There are 12 teams now in the Missouri Valley Conference. Let me just rattle them off to you alphabetically. Belmont, Bradley, Drake, Evansville, Illinois Chicago, Illinois State, Indiana State, Missouri State, Murray State, Northern Iowa, and Southern Illinois, and Valpo to wrap it up. The Fightin' Bryce Drews. Remember that shot? Boy, that's one of the greatest memories of my childhood. So in terms of the comings and goings that took place ahead of last year, remember Loyola Chicago was part of this conference and then left for the A10, and then 3 teams came in at that point. Belmont and Murray State came over from the Ohio Valley Conference, and then Illinois Chicago came over from the Horizon, a show that we did a conference we did a show on last week. Make sure you go check that out. Well, in terms of more storylines, man, we continue to see the transfer portal kind of wreaking havoc on lower level, like the lower level and mid level like this. Conferences are rated up to the highest level. Here's what I mean. For example, on Missouri Valley's first team last year, there were 6 people, which I'm hoping that means there was a tie. I didn't look at the voting numbers, but if not, come on, Missouri Valley. We need 5 on that list. Of those 6, though, 3 of them are gone because of transfer, not graduation or early entry or anything like that. 3 of them have transferred to the Big Ten. Damask leaves Southern Illinois for Illinois. Mast leaves Bradley for Nebraska. The leading scorer from the entire Missouri Valley is gone this year. Left Valpo for Iowa. Now, we do have 2 that are just gone for normal reasons. Penn from Drake graduated. That leading assist man, Drake's gonna have to figure that out this year. And then, of course, Shepard is off to the NBA. Good stuff there. But we do get 1 player off the first team back, and thankfully, that is the returning and reigning Conference Player of the Year, Tucker DeVries, coming back to Drake. All right, continuing on with storylines, let me catch up on some coaching things to be aware of. We only have 1 new coach in the conference this year. That is Roger Powell Jr. coming in for his first year at Valpo. It's kind of nice to have a little bit of consistency in the conference. Obviously, if you're a Missouri Valley fan, you know well, the longest tenured coach in this conference is Ben Jacobson at Northern Iowa. He's been there since 2006. But here's what's interesting. Beyond Jacobson, no other head coach in this conference has been at their school for a decade or more. Ben Jacobson is it. That's it. And so hopefully we can get some guys that stick around. But that's the thing. When you succeed at this level, it's not just the players getting poached, it's the coaches as well. And so that certainly has a lot to do with it. In fact, The next longest tenured coach is Bradley's Brian Wardle, who's been there since 2015. So getting close to a decade, but not quite, not even close to what Jacobson is doing at Northern Iowa. Another coaching thing I want to make sure to remind you of is that Steve Prohm is back at Murray State. And I think that is great news for the Racers. Remember, after Fred Hoiberg left Iowa State, Prohm went there in the 15-16 season. But then he came back to Murray State last season after Matt McMahon moved on to LSU. So this to me is great for Murray State. They had a kind of like essentially almost 500 year last year, went 17-15 overall, 11-9 in the conference, good for 7th place. So hopefully we can get the fighting John Morant's going this year. Now, for me, as I look at it, it's kind of natural for me. All right, we got 12 teams in the Missouri Valley. Let me just put them into some tiers as to how I'm looking at it ahead of this season. So let's start from the bottom and work our way up. In Tier 3, I've got 4 teams down at the bottom in Tier 3. Illinois Chicago, Illinois State, Evansville, who is going to be a little bit better this year, and Valpo. I actually have Valpo down in the cellar, in the basement, the cellar dwellers of the Missouri Valley this year. But that's my 4 bottom teams, my Tier 3 in the Missouri Valley Conference. And then Tier 2, right in the middle, I have, and again, this is not in my specific order, but Murray State, Belmont, Southern Illinois, and Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa is the team that I really struggled with wanting to put up into Tier 1. And Tier 1 is where I have Indiana State, Missouri State, Bradley, and Drake. Again, I'm not giving you my order there. I'm just saying that's the tiers of how I'm dividing this up. And there's some close. Like I really wrestled with, for me, Northern Iowa and Indiana State were kind of on that dividing line between Tier 1 and 2. But I went with Indiana State in Tier 1 and Northern Iowa in Tier 2. Maybe you think I'm wrong. I'd love to hear it. So Tier 1, Drake, Bradley, Missouri State, and Indiana State. Tier 2, Northern Iowa, Southern Illinois, Belmont, and Murray State. And then Tier 3, Illinois, Chicago, Illinois State, Evansville, and Valpo. Well, we got to make sure we make some predictions about our all-conference first team, the transfer of the year, the freshman of the year, and who's going to win this conference. All of that's coming up for you here in just a second. But first, I need to tell you about our brand new sponsor, Jace Medical. Hey, what would happen if you found yourself cut off from modern medical care and treatment? I'm guessing that just like me, you would not be prepared at all. Maybe it's like a supply chain issue from, I don't know, a global pandemic, or you're on an outdoor adventure, or there's a natural disaster, anything like that. Or maybe you're like me when you're trying to find some modern medical treatment and you're just so busy in life that you're like, I don't have time to go to make a doctor's appointment. And if you're like that, then man, the Jace case from Jace Medical is for you. It provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. All you have to do to get this Jace case, fill out a simple online form, and then you get a prescription, life-saving medications delivered right to your door. I love it because this Jace case gives you peace of mind so that you're not just hoping you have access to the best medication in an emergency, you actually have it in hand. So save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using my code LOCKEDON at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Doctor created, doctor recommended. That's Jace Medical. Oh, it's prediction time, baby. We're going to start with my first team, all MVC. And listen, no brainer on the first one. We got the reigning conference player of the year, the Larry Bird Award, as they call it in the MVC, coming back to school, going to be a junior at Drake, playing for his pop, 6'7" guard, Tucker DeVries. And listen, this young man had a great year as a freshman, was the freshman player of the year, 13.9 points, 4.6 rebounds, 2.1 assists, a steal, just shy of a block, 0.8 blocks. But he's also shot 33.9% from 3 on just over 6 attempts a game, and shot a respectable 77.5% from the free throw line on 2.8 attempts per game. I give you all those numbers because I want you to see then what happened last year, how he took another step forward beyond what he had done his freshman year. So as a sophomore last year, DeVries, 18.6 points, 5.7 rebounds, a little bit lower on assists, 1.8, 1.1 steals. Blocks were the only thing that was down from 0.8 to 0.2. That one's odd to me. Jumped up on three-point shooting up to 37% on 6.9 attempts. So a higher percentage, higher attempts. You'll love to see that trajectory. And then jumped up in his free throw, both in terms of percentage and attempts on that as well. So up from 77.5% to 83.8%. And then up from 2.8 free throw attempts a game to 4.2 free throw attempts per game. Tucker DeVries had an absolute baller year. No wonder he was named Conference Player of the Year. No reason to think that's going anywhere this year. Following in his footsteps is my second player on the All-MVC first team this year, and that's reigning Freshman Player of the Year, Schade Tyson of Belmont, 6'7" forward. So yes, I believe he follows in DeVries' path and is second in Player of the Year voting this year. I'm already tipping my hands a little bit there. And yes, in case you're wondering, Schade Tyson is the brother of Hunter Tyson from Clemson. Third on the all-conference first team, I have Bowen Bourne from Northern Iowa. My little homie like me, I'm 5'11", and so is Bourne, a 5'11" guard. But man, does great stuff there for Coach Jacobson. Excited to see what they're able to do this year. Fourth on the list, actually playing just an hour east of where I live in Joplin, Missouri. He plays over in Springfield, Missouri at Missouri State, and that's Donovan Clay, a 6'7", kind of do-it-all guard. He's been in the Missouri Valley Conference his whole career, 2 years at Valpo and 2 years at Missouri State, now taking advantage of that COVID year, and will be playing one more year at Missouri State. Last year, again, a little bit of everything, 11.9 points, 5.5 rebounds, 3.6 assists, just getting everyone going, getting involved, calling his own number at times. Donovan Clay, an absolute dude. And then fifth, wrapping up the first team all MVC for me is Malevi Leones from Bradley, reigning defensive player of the year. Love what this guy brings to the table. I think he's going to take more steps forward. Just one of those guys I'm like, is a breakout, even more of a breakout coming this year. Love to see when a defensive player can continue to expand their game. So I expect that from him this year. Let me because that's only 5 players. Let me just name a couple of others that I've got my eye on that you should be watching out for too. Going back to that Northern Iowa team is Titan Anderson. He's a senior, averaged 12.6 points, 8.5 rebounds per game last year, and that's as a 6'6" forward. I think he's on averaging a double-double watch, so watch out for Titan Anderson. Another at Missouri State is Chance Moore, obviously teaming up there with Donovan Clay, 6'5" junior guard at Missouri State. Keep your eyes on him. Robbie Avila at Indiana State. He's a 6'10" sophomore. He's a center. Watch out for what's going on there for the Sycamores in Terre Haute. And then at Illinois State, Kendall Lewis, 6'7" grad. He's a forward. I like his game. And then at Evansville, you already know this guy. I mean, unfortunately, down at the bottom of the conference, 6'4" guard Kenny Strawbridge brings a lot to the table. Hopefully, Evansville, again, can be better this year. All right, let me give you a couple more award things and then my conference champ. No surprise here, my player of the year, Tucker DeVries, that back-to-back, absolutely, he's going to bring that home again. Freshman of the year, there's 2 guys I was looking at. Tyler Bay at Missouri State, 6'8" small forward, coming in from Overtime Elite, actually. And the other guy I was looking at was Laurent Rice, who's going to Murray State, a 6'3" combo guard. I'm going with Tyler Bay as my freshman of the year in the conference. And then also transfer of the year, I narrowed it down to Isaiah Rivera from UIC, coming over from Colorado State. And then Jordan Davis, who will be at Illinois State, coming over from Wisconsin. And yes, he is Johnny's brother. Not quite the basketball player that Johnny is, but good. Anyway, I'm going with Isaiah Rivera as my transfer of the year in the Missouri Valley. As for the conference champs, to me, Bradley, Drake, right back at the top of this thing, just like last year. No reason to think they're going anywhere. let's see. Bradley, going to be tough, scrappy. They got that tenacious defense, relentless. It's going to be great. But man, I got to go with Drake winning both the regular season and the conference tournament. For me, it's that 1-2 combo of DeVries teaming up with Darnell Brody. And just that 1-2 punch is, for me, the best 1-2 punch in the conference. Makes them the team to beat. Although those two guys are the only returning starters. So there is that. I'm very curious. I mentioned it earlier. Who is going to be the person to replace what Roman Penn did at Drake? Homie had 5.5 assists a game. DeVries has the ball in his hands a ton, but he's not, the assist guy. He was under 2 assists a game last year. So a couple possibilities. Aton Wright is a really interesting addition, 16.7 points last year at Cal State Northridge, but also he's not the assist man. So that's not the answer there. I do think we'll see him in the starting lineup just with that scoring punch he packs. Perhaps the Penn role goes to UT Arlington's Kyron Gibson, who's also transferring into Drake. Had 3.9 assists a game last year at UTA, 11.2 points, shot 36% from 3. Needs to work on limiting turnovers, get those cut down. But if he can be a facilitator for these other guys, get DeVries going, get Brody going, get Wright scoring, then that makes a ton of sense. The problem, though, as I start to look at this backcourt, is you've also got Connor Enright, who started a couple games last year for Drake. If you roll out he and Gibson and Enright, he is Enright, excuse me. If you roll out Wright and Gibson and Enright, that's a backcourt that's 6'1", 6'1", 6'0". That's going to get abused, man. And so they got to look at what to do there. Maybe it's Ethan Roberts as the other starter, a 6'5" transfer from Army. As a freshman last year, 12.4 points, 4.4 rebounds, shot over 40% from 3 on 4.4 attempts per game, and 84.8% from the free throw line. So Ethan Roberts might have a little bit of something going on there at Drake. But all that to say, despite having to replace quite a bit, I have Drake as the regular season champs and taking home the Arch Madness championship as well. I do think here's my the top 4 seeds all get a bye in day one, or the bottom 8 teams all play on day 1. Top 4 teams get a single bye into day 2. So my order would be Drake 1, Bradley 2, Missouri State 3, and Missouri State 3, and then I'm going with Indiana State as my 4th seed. Although keep an eye on like Northern Iowa, keep an eye on Belmont, some of those teams that might raise up. Belmont is kind of a younger team, but some of the talent seems to be there. So we'll watch that. But again, ultimately, Drake bringing home that championship, getting into the NCAA tournament yet again. Folks, thanks so much for checking out Locked On College Basketball today. You everydayers, thanks so much for being here. If you're brand new to the show, just checking us out for the Missouri Valley content, welcome in, come back. It's going to be a great college basketball season here on Locked On College Basketball. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On CBB. You can follow me at Isaac Schade. On the show tomorrow, Andy Patton and Leaf Tulane will be with you. Going to be great stuff there. They're previewing the Summit League. Going to be talking about what's going on with the Maui Invitational. We got some updates with that. As always, apologies to the Lawyer family. Go Wildcats. And until tomorrow, peace.